Good evening, race fans, and welcome to the final round of the Team Goon Squad Formula One Challenge. It is round number 12. Again, the final round of the inaugural Formula One season with Team Goon Squad. My name is Mason Heimbaugh with Team Goon Squad, bringing you the action here today as drivers prepare and get themselves started and ready and gridded up for the start of today's race. We are going to quickly run through our starting grid and prepare for the running of the final race of the season. Finley Fitzsimmons in the 6 machine, starting out in first place with Corey Sabo. In the 4, starting in second place, rounding out your first row, Jack Mundy. In the 320, in third place with Alex Roggenbuck. In the 70, starting in fourth, Gareth McAllister. In the 25, in fifth place, David McKenna. Starting in sixth place in the 14, Troy Banks. Rounding out the field in last place in 7th, Joseph Penn listed, but is actively our pace car driver. So, not actively racing with us here today, but folks, we are here today at Autodromo, Nazionale, Monza. The final race of the season at one of the most infamous tracks on the Formula One schedule and in Formula One history. Monza, known for its, traditionally, its oval. The old oval that is still standing today. I don't think that it's kept up to any sort of standard by any means whatsoever. I believe that it is just a relic of a time that once was in the Formula One history. But still, the fact that Formula One used to run on banked ovals back in the day is still just makes me shudder a little bit, honestly. But in speaking of running in ovals, do I have some news for you folks here today? As our drivers see the lights go out, we are racing here for the first time. The first laps at Monza that we are doing. Corey Sabo, Finley Fitzsimmons both charging their way into turn 1. This nice sharp chicane in turn 1 here. The infamous corner that we have seen time and time again throughout the years. In recent years in Formula One history. Corey Sabo in the race lead here for our feature race today. Before we head into our feature 27 laps that we are going to be completing here at Monza, Corey Sabo still absolutely charging his way around this field, trying to get his way as far away from the Finley Fitzsimmons, who's now charging his way behind that number 4 machine. But you can also see Jack Mundy in this tail the tail end of this group here as they work their way through this beautiful S's section. I'm sure I am butchering all of the proper names of the corners here at the track, but with this being the last race of the season, all of our drivers here that have attended these races have all done a phenomenal job here. Corey Sabo, Finley Fitzsimmons, Jack Mundy, David McKenna, Alex Roggenbuck, Gareth McAllister, Troy Banks, Daniel Beauchamp, who is not here at the moment, who is a phenomenal prospect in this race, in this series here, is going to see his competitors race it out for the last time before we end off the season and get prepared for the start of our second season of the Team Goon Squad Formula One Challenge. And next time around, things are going to be a little bit different for the Formula One Challenge here. We are going to see a variety of different tracks in the next season. With Monza being on the list of tracks that we are going to attend next season. When I mentioned earlier that ovals might be making a comeback here for the Formula One series, I meant that literally. As on the schedule, as it currently stands, we are going to go to the Daytona Road Course. Now, if you're not familiar with Daytona, if you have never seen Daytona or have never watched a race, whether it's from IMSA or NASCAR, IndyCar, any of those series, really, I'm missing a few, well, you will know that things can get a little spicy. Ooh, wow, speaking of spicy, Finley Fitzsimmons hits the curb as they work their way through that tight chicane. Oh my gosh, they both collide. Jack Mundy sends Finley Fitzsimmons into the wall. Finley up on his roof. That is not going to be good there. Wow, the crew going to bring that 6 machine back behind the wall, and it is absolutely mangled, folks. That car is not looking too pretty right now. Trying to find you guys the best angle here, but continuing on with our race, Corey Sabo is going to take the lead here after Jack Mundy collided with the 6 of Finley Fitzsimmons, going wheel to wheel with one another. That was an absolutely brutal collision. And I'm surprised that Jack Mundy's still out here on track. Trying to see if he's got any sort of damage. And looking here, we can see the point of contact that was made between those two cars. And there's a little bit of scrapes to the rear end here. Doesn't look like a whole lot. No bits and pieces missing as far as I can tell. You can see through the visor of Jack Mundy the determination here today to keep himself steady and on pace with the number 4 of Corey Sabo. And I do apologize as well, folks. Normally there is a tire compound that is listed in the timing tower, but it seems like the way that we bring you this action here today, our software seems to have some issue with keeping that information in the logs, so to speak, to allow us to put that information on display. So we will just have to use our eyeballs and look at what compounds these drivers are currently using. Corey Sabo, currently leading the race, is going to be on those intermediate yellow tires. Jack Mundy here in the 320. And that orange and white. Well, is that orange? Is that yellow? I've always kind of wondered that. I've assumed that it's kind of a McLaren scheme get up. I'm not exactly certain. I'm not good with colors, folks. So either way, the orange and white 320 machine, I think that's the right colors there. It might be gold. It's one of those. Either way, Jack Mundy here, he's going to be on those soft reds, and you would think that being on those soft reds, you're going to be a little bit faster, and that's true. He's able to stay very, very close to the 4 of Corey Sabo, and you can see DRS open as well as they come through this another chicane. And with that advantage, that slight advantage, mind you, he's going to be able to stay very close to Corey, and he's going to be able to set himself up for a passing opportunity, but it's just a matter of when he feels the most comfortable to do so. DRS open here once more as we come across the line, charging our way down into turn 1. DRS open on the 320 machine. Corey Sabo still out in front going into turn 1. Jack Mundy very, very cautious. We definitely don't want to see a Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen moment for any of these guys. If you weren't watching the Formula One season in 2021, the last time they were at Monza, I believe is the correct track. If I'm not mistaken, I'm almost 99% certain that it was Monza. Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen were battling through that exact same section of the track. And, well, Max Verstappen ultimately found himself on top of the 44 car of Lewis Hamilton. So definitely Lewis wasn't too happy about that, and I don't think any of these drivers would be too happy about finding themselves in that situation either. But either way, you know, that particular section of the track is known to be extremely difficult, extremely menacing for any driver, really. You have to hit that mark perfectly, and when you introduce another car into that chicane, oh, look at this, Jack Mundy coming down into pit road. I'm going to assume as well, probably due to that little bit of damage that he suffered earlier on, definitely isn't going to be coming in due to tire wear or anything like that. But probably going to be making that compound change, getting himself back on track, and to be able to hopefully compete with the 4 of Corey Sabo. The next driver in contention, in second place, the 25 of Gareth McAllister, is right now not exactly making the same pace as Corey Sabo, kind of finding himself a little bit further off. Excuse me, with about 20.5 seconds between himself and first place driver of Corey Sabo here. So Gareth McAllister in this position where, you know, and a lot of other drivers here are kind of all finding themselves in the same exact position where they are all on their lonesome on the track. They ultimately are just holding on to that position and hoping and praying that the guy in front of them ends up in the wall or taking it behind pit road to hopefully take that next spot above them. And it's extremely difficult to do. It's not always going to work out in your favor when that happens. So we watch David McKenna here in the 14. He has Alex Roggenbuck loosely behind him at the moment, about 1.5 seconds between these two drivers as they charge their way into the first chicane of turn 1. And see, that's the kind of entry that you want. David McKenna with a very beautiful execution of that chicane. When you're by yourself, obviously that doesn't seem as much of a task, a chore, if you will. But when you have another car that's on your inside, on your outside, wherever you happen to be in that section of the track, man, it's not a lot of room. You have maybe a few inches on either side of you to work with. That allows you to race effectively. Ultimately, you're either going to find yourself getting up into the grass, into the gravel, whatever the case may be, and it's tough. It's a very tricky section of the track to manage here. But all these drivers here pushing their way here at Monza, lap 9 of 27. Corey Sabo, our race leader, Gareth McAllister in second place, David McKenna in third, Alex Roggenbuck in fourth, Troy Banks in fifth, Jack Mundy in sixth, and Finley Fitzsimmons after a gnarly wreck after contact with the 320 of Jack Mundy. Finley Fitzsimmons finding himself in seventh and down in pit road still. Not going to be coming out here for the rest of the feature here, but most likely will be making an appearance for the sprint race at the very end of the race here today. We're going to ride on board here for just a little bit with Alex Roggenbuck in the 70. In 4th place currently. He's charging behind David McKenna in the 14th. Going to see if he can possibly crack his way into the top 3 here. Very, very fast chicane. Both drivers making their way successfully through it. Very nice from both of them. DRS is open on the 70. He's going to charge his way around the 14 of David McKenna. Impressive work from Alex Roggenbuck, the German native. As he crosses his way across the checkered line here at Monza and charging his way back down into turn 1. And now David McKenna, as looks like he actually fell off the pace quite a bit. Okay. All right. I'm a little confused here, folks. I don't know exactly what happened here with David McKenna, but ultimately finding himself nearly 10 seconds down from Alex Roggenbuck. I don't know if David had a little bit of a mishap, maybe got a little loose, a little sideways somewhere. Not exactly certain. I can't imagine a whole lot of scenarios where you get past in a DRS zone and you find yourself 10 seconds down from the guy who passed you just a few seconds ago. That is that's got to be a little disheartening as well for David McKenna. David has had a few different times throughout this season where he's had some misfortunes, has had some solid performances throughout the race, and has ultimately found himself out of the race down in pit road just due to a simple mistake. And that's what happens. You know, these cars are not forgiving in any way, shape, or manner. They will eat you alive if you give them the opportunity to. They take a lot to keep together. They're very, very skittish if you allow them to be. These cars are extremely stable. They definitely are not easy to get loose as far if you're in the hands of a skilled driver, but when you are pushing it and pushing it and pushing it, trying to get that 1/10 of a second off of your time, that's when things start to get a little interesting. But that's also what sets apart the winners in this series from the losers. The drivers that are able to excel in this series, in these cars, and truly find that balance on both the car and every track that they take this car to. It's a challenging balance, but there are a lot of drivers here that have shown they are capable of achieving that. Lap 12 of 27 here in the feature. Things are obviously very calm, very steady for these drivers. Not a whole lot is happening out on track as far as battles are concerned, and really that's a lot of what you're going to find here at Monza. There's not a terrible amount of opportunities for overtakes, as you see here on your track map. And just to give you an idea of where all of our drivers are, there's ultimately 3, maybe 4 spots that you can effectively overtake somebody. Now, we did see Alex Roggenbuck with the successful overtake over David McKenna that we're looking at currently just a few laps ago. And that is essentially what I mean here. It's going to be out of the DRS zones, and that's pretty much the only spots that you're going to see these guys trying to make these overtakes. Looking at lap time histories, though, between Corey Sabo and Alex Roggenbuck, a little bit of a gap in information there on the bottom of our screens currently, but you can see the difference in pace between both Corey Sabo and Alex Roggenbuck. Over a second and a half is the difference between these two drivers on lap 26. That is, well, that's tough. Not something that you want to see as a driver. When you're a second and a half down from the driver out in front of you, man, you start to wonder to yourself, what can I do here? What can I reasonably do to make this work, to improve this gap? And man, I tell you, the list starts to get shorter and shorter as the race goes on. David McKenna right now on the charge back to the 70 of Alex Roggenbuck, who he saw pass him up earlier. David has worked that time down that we mentioned earlier. He was at about 9 seconds from himself to second place driver of the 70 of Alex Roggenbuck. And David has increased, or has dropped that down to about 8 seconds now as he comes out of the first chicane, out of turn 1 and 2. So, David there, I'm still trying to figure out exactly what happened. He might have just got a little loose, might have overextended the exit of his turn. Whatever the case may be, it's very, very easy in these cars to miss your apex, to miss your braking point. You're going so fast. These cars are incredibly fast. Right now, your drivers are accelerating from 60 mile an hour all the way up to 200 miles an hour in practically the blink of an eye. It's absolutely fascinating. Oh, wow, look at this. David McKenna snaps it. Gets into the wall and almost collects Gareth McAllister, or Troy Banks actually. Gareth McAllister also now working his way around David McKenna. And folks, man, that's kind of, that's some of the woes that David McKenna has seen here throughout the season. A few issues here and there, and that's cost him some incredible races throughout the season. But I'm sure has given him quite a number of learning experiences, and I'm sure we'll be back for the next season. I certainly do hope. But Corey Sabo still in our race lead currently. The next driver behind him, Alex Roggenbuck, with nearly almost a full minute between these two drivers, about 40 seconds actually now between these two drivers. That just goes to show how quickly the distance can be increased between these drivers. And when you only have 4 drivers out on track, well, that's there's not really much you can do. You have an extreme difference in pace between all of your drivers. Now, again, when this series welcomes drivers of all walks of life, there's drivers of all different skill sets. You really have drivers in here that might be better suited at an oval track, or they might be better suited at a rallycross course. Whatever the case may be, these drivers are all coming here to share the same passion, which is driving the Mercedes W13. Because it is just a phenomenal machine. It is an incredible piece of work that iRacing and the Mercedes Petronas AMG team have put together here for us folks at iRacing, or for us folks that enjoy the iRacing service. So we're going to look here with Troy Banks for a minute. Getting himself nice and high up on that chicane. On the bump, on the curb. With Troy Banks here up 3 spots from the start of this race. And, you know, I got to hand it to Troy here as well. He's kind of just played it safe, played it calm and steady, and has found himself in 4th place now. And again, when you're out in this field and there's not much that you can do to catch up to the guy in front of you, this is exactly what you're looking for. You're looking for the guys out in front to make mistakes, to find themselves having to come down into pit road to get this and that fixed because they came into turn 1 too hot. Whatever the case may be. Now, drivers are essentially just hot lapping at this point to keep position, increase their gap as much as they can, whatever the case is, whatever they want to try and do. So Corey Sabo, he's on lap 18 now on those intermediate tires, and I gotta think now that Corey is going to be thinking about coming down into pits pretty soon here. He's going to have to come in regardless to make that compound change before the end of the race here. But I got to imagine he's extended the life of those tires. Well, he's probably at the point to where they're going to start fading pretty progressively, and he's going to struggle to maintain grip on those tires. But Corey Sabo having and worked his lead up to nearly a full minute between himself and second place driver of Gareth McAllister. Corey Sabo not exactly going to be too worried here. And there he goes, Corey Sabo down into pit road. Gonna take his first pit lap of the day and get a change of tires here. Let's see what he comes out on. I'm gonna have to assume it is gonna be those soft reds. Should have known that one. But lap 19 of 27 here at Monza. So Corey Sabo here going to retain his lead with still over a minute now between himself and second place Gareth McAllister. Watching Troy Banks working his way through turn 1, the first chicane. All of these drivers here have done a lovely job on that first section here. I believe, if I recall correctly, it was Carlos Sainz. I think it was. I'm sure there's plenty of drivers that have done it, but Carlos Sainz specifically that I'm thinking of blew through the I forget what it's properly called, but blew through the little barricades that drivers are supposed to work through to safely merge back onto track if they do miss the first braking zone there for the first chicane. But every time I see that section, I just I get flashbacks to that, or the Lewis Hamilton Max Verstappen incident that I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the broadcast here. Monza with a lot of rich history with Formula One, so plenty of things to talk about with Monza. I'm more than certain there has been, and there you see actually, if you saw just on the right hand side of your screen there for just a moment, you could see the old oval that is still there to this day. That drivers back in the day, I believe it was around the 50s, that drivers used to race on. And let me tell you, it was absolutely terrifying. Even watching some of the old footage of old Monza and seeing that bank with no barricades. Most drivers didn't even have any form of safety equipment, anything like that. There was some pretty epic crashes, which ultimately led to Monza building what is now the track that we are currently racing on today. But yeah, you can get another view of that old oval. There you see it on the top of your screen there. A wicked bank that those cars used to see. And from 70 years ago, the cars definitely did not look like anything that they do now. If I recall correctly, they mostly looked like bullets with wheels in those times. And man, I gotta tell you, even back then when cars were going 200 miles an hour, and if I'm not mistaken, they were going 200 miles an hour with big old V12 engines. I think they were from planes that they would put in there in those cars. So just absolutely stupid, monstrous engines that they would put in these cars and send it around this oval. It was just absolutely incredible. To even think about doing something like that today would just be baffling. But if you recall earlier, we are going to Daytona Roval for the second season of the Team Goon Squad Formula One Challenge. I gotta say, I'm pretty excited for that race in particular. You know, we don't ever get to see Formula One cars racing on ovals anymore, and really the only open wheel car that we get to see race on an oval anymore is IndyCar. There might be a few others that I am missing, but as far as I'm aware, IndyCar modifieds, I guess you could also say, is in that class of open wheel, are the only ones that are racing on ovals, and Formula One has not seen an oval since the days of old Monza. So to take things back across the pond this time to America for the Daytona Roval in these machines that are in no way, shape, or form designed or meant to go on a bank. It's going to be fantastic, folks. I hope you all are subscribed for that action. It is going to be phenomenal. Oh, wow, look at this. Lockup. Troy Banks, Alex Roggenbuck, both getting extremely close to one another. Alex with a massive lockup there as well. As they both work to try and avoid colliding with one another in that chicane. Troy Banks now taking that third place spot and is now going to be trying to charge his, get away from the 70 of Alex Roggenbuck get himself a nice, comfortable lead ahead. Lap 24 of 27. The end of the feature is nigh. It's Alex Roggenbuck here on the soft reds here as well. Troy Banks on those intermediates. Interesting choice of strategy here with both of these drivers, and really it's the only choice you have. You either start on the intermediates or you start on the soft reds. There's no reason to go on the hards. This is not the track for it. As tight and as difficult as some of these chicanes can be to manage, the track definitely does not require the need for the hard compound tire. Lap 25 of 27. The race is going to be ending very shortly here. Corey Sabo, our race leader. Gareth McAllister in second place, and Troy Banks in third. Alex Roggenbuck in fourth place. And after having a little bit of an opportunity there with Troy Banks to try and get into third, he's fallen off just a little bit. And is now going to essentially probably just hold on to this fourth place spot and take it across the line once the checkered flag has flown. There it is, my oval commentating seeping through into our Formula One commentary. It is lap 26 of 27 here at Monza. Corey Sabo, after taking the lead, after Jack Mundy and Finley Fitzsimmons collided with one another, that pretty much set the door for Corey Sabo wide open, and Corey has taken away this lead and has not looked back since. Corey Sabo with nearly a full minute between himself and second place driver Gareth McAllister. Corey going to be looking to take home the win for the final race of the Team Goon Squad Formula One Challenge. And the white flag flies here. This is the final lap here at Monza. And Corey Sabo, all he's got to do is keep it clean and keep it together. And he's got this one in the bag. And Troy Banks, Gareth McAllister, both going to be duking it out here for this second place spot on the final lap. Gareth McAllister seemingly having some technical difficulties here, as he appears in and out of the screen and has an issue, a significant one that is going to put him out of the race. He is a mangled mess off the track. Troy Banks, now the door is open for him to take home second as he comes across the line for the final time. well, for the second to final time here tonight for the feature before we go into our short sprint race at the end. And Corey Sabo across the line for the win here at Monza. Troy Banks now going to be working his way through the track as quickly as possible. Alex Roggenbuck as well. Both of these drivers going to be looking to take home second and third respectively. Troy Banks now coming out of the final turn and across the line to take home second place. Alex Roggenbuck going to be doing the same here and taking home third. And that's going to wrap up our feature race for today. Corey Sabo taking home the win. Troy Banks in second. Alex Roggenbuck in third. Gareth McAllister in fourth. David McKenna in fifth, Jack Mundy in sixth, and Finley Fitzsimmons taking home seventh. That is going to conclude our feature. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we will be right back for the sprint race. Stay tuned, folks. We will be right back for more.
Driver Carrington gets dumped by Benami. The leaders are winding up here. Daytona, the big one is out.
Welcome back, folks, to the final race of the Goon Squad Formula One Challenge. Our starting grid is here for the sprint race. Finley Fitzsimmons starting out in first place. Corey Sabo in second. Jack Mundy in third. Actually, this is our wrong starting grid. All right, so that was for the feature race. Actually, it does seem to be correct. Finley Fitzsimmons is starting out in first place here, folks. That is my bad. Corey Sabo in second. Jack Mundy in third. Alex Roggenbuck in fourth. Gareth McAllister in fifth. David McKenna in sixth. And Troy Banks in seventh for the start of this race. Start of the feature. Or, excuse me, the sprint. Oh, geez, folks. All over the place here. But as we patiently await, the red lights will go out, and we are off. Finley Fitzsimmons starting off in first place. Jack Mundy in second. Finley Fitzsimmons on the charge into turn one. Here we go. We're going to have some side-by-side, wheel-to-wheel action. Oh, man, Jack Mundy, oh, wow, David McKenna both get into one another right out of the gate here. That's not going to look good for both of them. And that's, we saw a little bit of that during the feature that side-by-side, wheel-to-wheel action going into that first chicane can get very messy very, very quickly here. But David McKenna, 5th place now currently, trying to get his way back around the 320. Jack Mundy, he does. Oh, gets a little wide, touches the sand, he keeps it back together, gets out of the gravel, back out in front of Jack Mundy here, as these drivers only have 13 laps for this sprint race. String of drivers here. An absolutely fantastic view. And with the end of today's race here, this is also going to be the start of the Formula One season, of the official. Oh, wow, look at this. David McKenna out of the chicane, barely gets himself into the gravel. That's going to open up the door here for Gareth McAllister in the 25, taking that 5th place spot. Checking back in up here with our leaders, Finley Fitzsimmons taking the lead after getting into a little bit of an incident with Jack Mundy. Jack Mundy getting wheel-to-wheel with Finley and sending him into the wall of the turn that we just went through. But back to the point I was making, the start of the 2022 Formula One season starts this week, Friday, March 18th, 2022. Math is hard sometimes, folks. So with the start of a brand new season also comes brand new cars for all of our drivers. And if you have not stayed tuned with kept up with all of the updates and all of the new things coming to the 2022 season, if you were to put the W13 and the new W14, I believe it is called, side by side with one another, they would look tremendously different from each other. With that being the side pods being one of the major differences here that Mercedes has taken for the 2022 season. Now, if you're not familiar with what the side pods are, let me see if I can get a good view of that here for you folks. That is not what I'm looking for. So, we don't normally like to use this view here, but this is gonna allow me to explain my point here. If you look just underneath the mirrors of Finley Fitzsimmons' 6 machine here, you can kind of see some big, kind of like gaps, if you will, some big air intakes. Now, normally that is what this is used for. It is used as cooling. I'm pretty certain, I'm not exactly what part of the car specifically it's for. I'm sure it's just cooling in general. But point being is this was also a significant part of the car that created drag. And what Mercedes has done going into 2022 has basically trimmed these down to essentially nothing. The car now looks very sleek, is the way I would put it. It no longer kind of has this puffed out look, I guess you could kind of look. I suppose these cars to me kind of almost have kind of like the vibe of a Cobra, if you will, when its hood is open. It's kind of in that esque, to me at least. I'm sure some people have some different thoughts and opinions on that, but to me that's kind of what it feels like, looks like, loosely, not quite, but loosely. So as Finley Fitzsimmons continues on his lead here, Corey Sabo in second place, the winner of our feature for today's race at Monza. Both of these drivers here, Corey Sabo, Finley Fitzsimmons, as well as Daniel Beauchamp, who is not here today. All three of these drivers have, they've all been kind of duking with one another throughout the season and have found themselves battling it out with one another. And hopefully we'll see that continue going into the second season of the Formula One Challenge. As we've seen a lot of great battles and a lot of great driving from everyone here. Both throughout the season and here in today's race in particular. Not a whole lot of major issues that we have seen. Fairly calm and fairly steady racing that we've seen throughout today's race. So really great to see. Only a few minor mistakes that we've ultimately seen drivers find themselves in. Look at Corey Sabo's onboard camera. And a very, very fast section here at Monza. And I think that view there just kind of puts it into perspective just how fast that portion of the track truly is. And ultimately, it just goes to show how stable these cars are and just how incredible it is that they are able to whip themselves around the track going 200 mile an hour. We're seeing top speeds of 207, 208 miles an hour here at Monza. And if you look on the bottom right-hand side of your screen, you can see in kilometers an hour just how fast these guys actually are going and what their current gear is. So we can kind of ride along here with Corey Sabo and give you an idea of a lap here at Monza. When these cars were introduced to the iRacing platform, iRacing made it known and made it very well clear that both Mercedes and iRacing did an extensive amount of testing to ensure that this car is replicated to as much precision as possible. And ultimately what happened is this car performs to about 1/10 of a second, or I believe it was either 1/10 of a second or a full second to its real life counterpart, which is just absolutely incredible. The level of detail, the level of attention that was put into this car. Now, you got to remember as well, Mercedes, Petronas, they have put in an incredible amount of money into R&D and overall just putting this car together. If you are not, again, if you're not familiar with Formula One, if you're not invested into that space, to kind of give you an idea of what these cars cost and what it's like to keep one on track. From the research that I have done, from the things that I have heard, rough estimates from what I've seen and heard. On the low end, now if you are like Haas, for example, throwing out some low blows there, you might expect an entry-level car to cost you about $10 million a pop. And you are required to bring, I think you're only allowed to bring a certain number of cars with you. I think you're allowed to bring a backup for each driver, or it might just be for the whole. I think it's for each driver. Anyway, anyhow, going into even further minor details, but the grand scheme of things here, it's $10 million per car. Per car. It's not just for all of them. It's per car. Now let's translate over to IndyCar, where all of the cars are manufactured by the same company, Dallara. Those cost about, I think it's $250,000. I think. I could be wrong on that number. That might have changed in recent years, but I think it's around I know it's under $1 million. It's around the $200,000, maybe $500,000 mark. But they both travel the same speed. They both go extremely fast. The key differences being that the Formula One cars are able to navigate these tight turns a lot better than your IndyCar counterpart. If you go and look and compare a Formula One car to an Indy car, I almost said Indy One car. Oh boy, folks, it's been a long morning already here. Anyway, if you compare the two at a similar road course, the Indy car almost always does worse than the Formula One car. Now, if transversely, if you put a Formula One car on an oval track, well, obviously, the Indy car is going to decimate. Key differences, right? Formula One cars, they don't go to oval tracks. Indy cars, they go to oval tracks. So, kind of a different balance that has to be done there between these cars. And well, ultimately, the amount of engineering and the cost of the components for these cars, you got to bear in mind as well. Most of these components made of carbon fiber. The halo that you see on top of the car, I believe, is made of titanium. A very, very expensive material to obtain and fabricate into something that is that is what we see on these cars here today. So definitely a lot of different things being put into these cars that add on to the cost, but it is also the same engineering that has given us the racing and the car that we see today, the performance that we see today. Excuse me. With the season changing, the weather starting to get a little bit warmer, it starts to have an effect on the old throat. So things a little bit drier than usual, trying to drink as much fluids as possible, but doesn't always work out in our favor up here in the booth, especially when you're talking away as much as we are. Now, granted, we haven't really had a whole lot to discuss throughout this race, and it's been a lot of just quiet, steady action here. Lap 12 of 13, we've pretty much made it all the way until the end here. Finley Fitzsimmons has taken away this lead, and Corey Sabo has essentially just been trailing him this entire time. And excuse me again, I'm not exactly certain that he will be able to track him down in time before the checkered flag flies. He still has another lap around before the white flag comes around. Excuse me. Before the white flag comes out. So definitely still a chance, but it's going to take some work. And I don't think that Corey Sable is going to have quite enough time to be able to pull it off here. Across the line we go. The white flag flies. Finley Fitzsimmons still our race leader for the sprint race. Corey Sabo in second and Troy Banks following loosely behind in third. As we ride along again here with Corey Sabo for the last and final time here at Monza, for the final race of the Team Goon Squad Formula One Challenge. And this is it, folks. This is the final few turns of the race. We are going to come out onto the front stretch, and Finley Fitzsimmons is going to come across the line, taking home the win for the sprint. Corey Sabo taking it home in second. Troy Banks making his way around the final turn. He's going to take it across the line for third. Gareth McAllister still suffering some technical issues on his end. Going to take it across the line for that fourth place spot. Alex Roggenbuck quickly working his way towards the final turn to take home fifth in the 70 machine. David McKenna just behind him. Going to take it home for sixth once he works his way across the line. And that is going to conclude the final race of the Team Goon Squad Formula One Challenge for the first season. And here are our official race results. Finley Fitzsimmons taking home the win for the sprint. Corey Sabo in second. Troy Banks in third. Gareth McAllister in fourth. Alex Roggenbuck in fifth. David McKenna in sixth. Jack Mundy rounding out the field. And that is the end of the first season of the Team Goon Squad Formula One Challenge. I want to thank you all for tuning in and watching. And I hope that if you did enjoy the action, that you tune in for the next season. And if you are interested in joining us for the next season of the Formula One Challenge, head on over to teamgoonsquad.com, find us on Discord, and make sure you get yourself signed up and ready for the start of the Formula One Challenge for next season. We are going to the ring, the Nürburgring, to be specific. And that will be the start of the second season of the Formula One Challenge, starting in just a few weeks. My name is Mason Heimbaugh with Team Goon Squad, bringing you the action. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all next time.